Emma Carlile shifted in her seat, eyes darting across the empty road ahead. The dim glow of her car's dashboard was the only light piercing the darkness that enveloped her. As a human resources specialist for a discrete division within a government agency, she was accustomed to the unusual demands of her job. But this trip was different. She had been dispatched to a small, unassuming town where reports of bizarre employee behavior at a satellite office had raised red flags. The drive was long and monotonous, with thick forests hugging the edges of the highway, their branches silhouetted against the starless sky. Emma inhaled deeply, trying to calm her growing unease. Her mind wandered to the dossier sitting on the passenger seat. Pages filled with nonsensical anecdotes, employees whispering to unseen companions, vacant stares and inexplicable bouts of laughter echoing down empty hallways. A sudden familiar pinging sound pulled her from her thoughts. It was the fuel gauge hovering near empty. "Perfect," she muttered, her voice breaking the silence. She remembered passing a lone gas station a few miles back, an isolated oasis in the desolate stretch of road. With a resigned sigh, Emma turned the car around, retracing her path back towards the station. As she pulled in, the flickering neon sign cast an eerie light over the cracked pavement. Emma stepped out, the cold biting through her thin coat, and started the pump. The quiet was profound, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves. She glanced around, feeling the weight of unseen eyes in the shadowed corners of the night. "Just nerves," she whispered to herself, trying to dismiss the sensation. Once the tank was full, Emma hurried inside to pay. The clerk, a disinterested man with tired eyes, barely looked up from his newspaper as she handed over crumpled bills. "Quiet night?" she remarked, attempting small talk. The clerk nodded, eyes not leaving the page. "Just the way we like it," and slid her change across the countertop. Emma forced a smile and returned to her car, her heart racing inexplicably. As she settled back into the driver's seat, she hesitated, a strange intuition tugging at her. Yet, there was no one around, no movement, save for the wind stirring the trees. Shaking off the paranoia, Emma started the engine and merged back onto the highway. Miles passed in silence, the rhythmic thrum of tires on asphalt lulling her into a trance. She turned on the radio, hoping for a distraction, but the only station she could find was playing static-laden oldies. With a sigh, she leaned back, allowing the crackling tunes to wash over her. That's when she noticed it, a movement in the rearview mirror, a presence just on the edge of perception. Her heart skipped a beat, a chill creeping down her spine. Emma kept her eyes fixed ahead, her breath catching in her throat. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice steady despite the rising panic. Silence followed. A long pause stretched into eternity. Then, as if responding to some unspoken cue, a low, calm voice answered, "Just a passenger." Emma swallowed, a mix of terror and disbelief washing over her. She dared a glance in the mirror, her eyes meeting a figure cloaked in shadows. There was an inexplicable familiarity to the shape, a strained comfort mingling with the dread. "Are you real?" she whispered, her grip on the wheel tightening. "Real enough," came the reply, the words echoing softly around her. "You're not afraid?" Emma hesitated, her mind racing. Was she dreaming? Or had she finally lost her grip on reality after years of dealing with the peculiar and the unexplained? The odd sense of calm settled over her, the presence feeling less intrusive and more like an extension of her own thoughts. "No," she answered truthfully, surprised by her own admission. "Should I be?" The shadow shifted, a suggestion of movement that felt more introspective than threatening. "That depends." Emma's heart thudded painfully, a cold sweat breaking across her skin. Yet, the fear was strangely tempered by a familiarity she couldn't place. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice tinged with a mix of defiance and dread. The figure remained shrouded, an indistinct shadow against the darkness. "To guide you," it replied softly, its tone unsettlingly calm. "To show you the truth you've buried beneath years of lies." "Truth?" Emma scoffed, her nerves fraying under the weight of its words. "What truth?" "That you're not just a pawn in your organization. You're its executioner. How many have you silenced under the guise of human resources?" The accusation hung heavy in the air, each word an arrow piercing the carefully constructed narrative of her life. Emma's mind raced, denial warring with the creeping suspicion that had always lingered at the edges of her consciousness. "You're lying," she insisted, her voice weak, lacking conviction. The shadow chuckled, a chilling sound that resonated through the car. "Am I? The pattern, Emma. Haven't you seen it? The missing employees, the ones who vanish after your visits. It's all connected. You've been cleaning up, making sure no secrets leak out. Just like they trained you to." Emma shook her head, a deep-seated fear clawing at her from within. The drive, the reports, the isolated missions, it all seemed so insidiously interconnected. Her vision blurred, the road becoming a tunnel of darkness. "No," she whispered, clinging to the last shreds of denial. "I would know." The shadow shifted, leaning closer as if to whisper a secret meant only for her ears. "But you do know, Emma. You've always known. The question is, what will you do now?" Emma's mind was a whirlpool of memories and forgotten truths, resurfacing like ghosts from the depths. Each assignment, each trip to a remote office. Was she not just an observer, but the harbinger of erasure? Desperation fueled her, a need to escape the revelation threatening to unravel her. She pressed down on the accelerator, the car surging forward, swallowing miles in an effort to outrun the insidious truth. The shadow merely laughed, the sound echoing within her skull. Finally, the town materialized in the distance, its silhouette rising ominously against the horizon. Emma pulled into the office parking lot, the building looming large and oppressive in the early dawn light. She exited the car on shaky legs, the air thick with anticipation and something more, a profound sense of wrongness that hung over the place like a shroud. Inside, the corridors were silent, as if holding their breath in anticipation of her arrival. She delved into her investigation, each file a piece of a puzzle she was terrified to complete. The stories were the same. Employees reporting whispers, eyes that followed them unseen, laughter that mocked from shadowed corners. As she moved through the office, it became apparent that it was not just an ordinary building. It was a labyrinth of secrets and deceit, its walls echoing with the ghosts of those who had disappeared. Emma felt their presence, a relentless pressure at the edge of her consciousness. And then she reached it, a hidden room, sealed away from prying eyes. Inside, her world imploded. Walls lined with photographs of employees she had known, their faces twisted in expressions of terror. Documents detailing her role, her complicity in a conspiracy far darker than she could have imagined. Emma stumbled back, her mind reeling as the full weight of her actions crashed down on her. She had been the executioner, the hand that delivered them to whatever fate awaited in this wretched place. The shadow had been right. She had been blind to her true purpose, a puppet dancing on strings she couldn't see. In a twisted revelation, she realized that the shadowy passenger had been her own subconscious, manifesting the truth she had refused to acknowledge. It was her guilt, her fear, and her awakening. A grim determination settled over her. She would not be part of this twisted game any longer. Emma gathered the damning evidence, a resolve building within her to expose the truth, whatever the cost. As she made her way back to her car, a sense of eerie calm descended. She no longer feared the shadow, for it was part of her, a constant reminder of the sins she needed to atone for. But as she turned the key in the ignition, her blood ran cold. There, in the back seat, sat a familiar figure, the very first victim she had unknowingly sent to their doom. He smiled, a ghastly, knowing smile.
"You didn't think it was that easy, did you?"
The figure whispered, the words slicing through her resolve like a knife. Emma's scream echoed into the night, a chilling melody of terror and despair as the truth finally devoured her whole.